Alright, hello everyone. This is going to be a video about the Trax editor. It's going to get you started on using the Trax editor. With Maya, we can create animations and save those animations in a clip that is actually reusable. So it's like having nonlinear animation where you can take clips and set them up that you can maybe have a movement in X and a jump and a head nod or a squash and stretch. This is going to correspond to where we are in class, where we are talking about animation tracks. So you're going to have an animation lesson where you're going to be going to Instant Maya. If you click on this, you're going to do a little introduction here that has two parts. One is a spaceship, and then there's a second part where you actually will be looking at using a different kind of model, a human model that is using motion capture data. So I'm going to get you started with a little spaceship to get you kind of familiar with the setup. And also, if you weren't in class, if you go to this link here, you will download a folder that will have the contents in it. So I'm going to show you the folders here. When you download that folder, you'll get a zip file, and in that zip file you'll have an animation clips test version 1. In that is your Maya scenes for the spaceship. We'll have a rig that we'll pull in as a reference, and I have a little scene here that has a demonstration in it. Now understand that each one of these is this one is a Maya I can't think of the word. What is it called? Let me go back to Maya here. When you go here, a project. So whenever you go here, it's a project folder. So when you click on it, you'll see that it has data in it. And we're going to see that it actually has some things we haven't looked at before. There's a clips folder, and that's going to be very important in holding the clips of animation that you want. So these have been saved as Maya ASCII files. So I have liftoff in Y, rotation, translation. So all of these are single animations that we're going to use or we're going to create ourselves. In the scenes folder, we have a rig that we're going to use as a reference. I'm going to demonstrate that rig to you so you're kind of familiar with the basics. So make sure you set your project to that folder. So when we're in Maya, go here, we're going to go to File, Set Project, and then we're going to direct it to that folder. You'll be looking at that off your desktop, and you'll go to your Trax editor files and your animation clips and set it. So that way, when we want to open up a file, it'll automatically go into our source image or our scenes folder. Now, I'm going to show you. I'm just going to open up the ship rig and show you that rig just for a second. Now, you're not going to be using the rig directly. You're going to be using what's called a reference, and we've talked about this before, where the reference is just it's exactly what it is, like an instance of a file, or it's not the actual file itself. It's pulling that information in, but we're not going to be changing this. So that if I wanted to make updates, or your technical director wanted to make updates to something, add more functionality to this spaceship, they could do that, and then everyone who's using that file as a reference gets the updates automatically. So it's a great way to limit how many changes you need to make, because if everyone was using a separate file, then if I added more functionality to a control object, if I wanted to add that, I'd have to go in and do that to every single person's scene file. So if I had 10 or 20 people, I'd have to do that 20 times. But with a reference, all I need to do is do it once, and those changes are updated to everyone who's using that file. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate this little spaceship for you. Right now, you can see that there's two curves here. These are simply NURBS curves. I've just made one at the top. This is called the master control. And if you can see over here in the channel box, there's only a couple things that's available. These objects are grayed out, so it can't scale, I can't rotate, but I can translate. So essentially, this is just designed to translate your ship forwards, backwards, and and up and down. Okay, so those controls are limited for a reason. Your technical director will limit you on what you can do, so you can't mess the rig up in any way. So this one here will rotate the ship in some way. So if I was to want to animate some motions like this, I would use that. So I can. What's nice is that in combination, I can bank and have my ship change its location and change its rotation kind of separately, and I can control those things independently. Now, there's also something that this has, and that's called a character set. A character set is basically a group of objects that you want to control, kind of limits all the possibilities of what it is that you could keyframe. So when you have a character like a full body character that has lots and lots and lots of controls, you have your joints and you have your IK handles and you have these other things, we want to limit what we actually need to be working with. So in this particular case, we create what's called a character set. And the character set simply is created by going into your animations menu set and going to character and going to what's called create character set. If I was to go here, I can then create a character set that contains the animated or the animatable attributes that I want to work with. Now, I've done that ahead of time, and if I go down here in this bottom corner of my screen, you can see that there is something called my ship. Well, that is my ship. That is my character set for my spaceship. And that, if I go in to look at it, I can scroll this down and see that in the relationships editor under my spaceship, it has the rotation controls, and the master controls available for me to animate. So basically I've eliminated a whole bunch of stuff that I don't really even want to be dealing with, and these are the things that I'm simply going to be able to set keys on. It really can make things much easier for you whenever you are working with a rig that is much more complex than this one. But I did want to mention that when you work with Trax editors, you want to have a character set up. If you don't, then it will create one for you. And so you will be making sure that you have your character set, and it's already done for you. So I'm going to leave this scene. I just wanted to demonstrate that for you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make a new scene for myself. I'm going to call this my save scene. Remember, save scene. And I'm going to call this my spaceship Trax editor. And I always like to put a version 1.1, and I can build up my scenes in a chronological order. So my first one is 1.1, and if I want to make some updates, then I'll have 1.2, 3, 4, 5, and on as I need it. So this is going to be a scene right here. Now I want to pull in a reference. I want to pull this spaceship into my scene. So I'm actually going to create what's called a reference. So I'm going to go up to File. I'm going to go down to Create Reference, and it's going to look in my Scenes folder, and this is where I'm going to use the ship rig as my reference. So I'm going to say Create Reference right here. This button here is Reference, and what you'll notice is it pulls it into my scene. So I have my ship brought into my scene. There's my control object. There is my rotation, and notice that down in here I have my ship as my character set, and I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to choose that. Now there's a couple things we want to do. The tools that I'll be working with is called I'm going to choose a specific layout, and that layout is called, it's under saved layouts, it's called Perspective Trax Outliner. So it's called Perspective Trax Outliner. So what I'm going to get is my perspective window up top, a new window that we haven't ever talked or seen about called the Trax editor here, and then on the left hand side is my outliner. And we're familiar with outliner. It's kind of like a hyper graph, but it's a little bit different. Now there's a few things I want to adjust here. In my display settings, I want to uncheck this DAG objects only. Uncheck that. It's gonna also go to show objects and clips. So I want to see any of the clips that I have in my scene. And if I click on this little arrow, it will show me pretty much all the active things in my scene. So here's my cameras that weren't there before, but we know they exist. Here's a lot of information that's already been done in my demo. I've made some clips already, so this is giving me the information about my graph editor and information about the curves and different types of clips that I've already created. So we won't have to worry about all these things, but we'll soon see that we can begin building our own clips. So currently, here's my little character set. So if I twirl this down, I can see these are the controls at which I'm going to be able to set keys on. Okay, so there's a lot of information here, and if you don't have the display, some of these things set properly, it won't pop up right. So make sure you uncheck the DAG only and go to show objects clips. Make sure that that is checked. I'm gonna click that arrow, and it shows me kind of everything in my scene. Okay, and there's my rig. All right. Okay. Now, the first thing I want you to think about is that when we're making clips, the clip is, you can think of it as, we can isolate the movements of an object into individual movements. So my forward movement in Z, or my would be a clip. The up movement in a liftoff of this spaceship lifting off, going from 0 to 10, or lifting off the ground, could be a clip. Landing could be a clip. Banking right could be a clip. Banking left could be a clip. Turbulence, where I make the ship kind of fly out of control, could be a clip. And all of those clips can be utilized together in a way that adds kind of a synergistic. So you can have clips that have forward movement, an uplift, a banking right, a banking left. All of those things can be working together at the same time, and we can quickly change how and when they occur by moving around the clip within the clip tracks editor. So let's get started on seeing how this kind of thing will work. First thing we're going to do is making sure that we have our clip, our character set in our down here in our timeline, making sure that's been selected. I am going to move my ship back in Z, and I'm simply going to make it move forward in this. So I'm going to just keep a very simple movement forward. I'm not going to draw, I want this to be visible within the screen, so I'm not going to, as a matter of fact, well, I'll just do it kind of from this side view. All right, so it'll be a very simple example of what we want to do. So I'm going to set my first key in my translate Z. I'm going to key selected. Recall that down here in my timeline I have a red check. I'm going to increase my time to 90 frames, and I'm going to move forward in my timeline to the 90th frame and move my ship forward to the right side of my screen. So here we go. So if I play this back, I should have movement from here to there. Okay. Now we know that we can go to our graph editor and look at that curve, and I do want to look at that curve. Remember, you should have your graph editor up all the time so that you can see what it is that you are, see how the movement is. So I'm going to frame in that motion, and I'm going to have this, I want it easing out and easing in, and this is available by making sure that your curves are flat. Remember the flat, we don't want a linear. We want, in this particular case, I want it to be flat. I want it to ease out of my position, then fly, and then it's going to come to a land, and it's going to stop. Okay? So currently, I have keyframed that animation, and that looks good to me. Let's just say that looks great. Now, I want to save this motion as a clip. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. It's going to take this information that I just keyframed, it's going to make a clip out of it, and it's going to pull those keys out of our timeline, and it's going to pull that animation and be reading it from our clips, from our tracks editor. So you'll see these keyframes disappear, but then we'll start seeing the clip appear in our trax editor. So let's see if we can do that. We're going to go to Create, Animation Clip, Option Box. I'm going to go here and say Edit, Reset Settings, and I'm going to call this Ship Forward Motion. I'm just going to call it Ship Forward Motion. I want to name it something that I understand. Hopefully, it makes sense to me. When I start building a variety of clips, you want it to be clear. And I want to say Create Clip. When I do that, notice that I have now a bar. If I roll back on my mouse, I will see this bar here. And if I use my camera tools, my Alt and my middle mouse, I can move in my timeline here. Notice that time ticks are gone, yet I still have animation. So what I have here is I have a clip, and this clip can be selected and moved in my timeline. So let's talk about the parts of this clip and what they mean. Okay. When I look at this clip, there's a couple things I want you to open up. I want you to look at this clip here in the trax editor, but I also want you to go to the attribute editor, and we're going to see that the attributes for this are available in our here we go, in our attribute editor. So I'm looking for the node that's containing the ship forward motion, and here it is. And there's some things that I want you to see. First, if we are looking at the attribute editor, we can enable it or disable it by just simply checking this top box. Every clip has a weight value, meaning you can change the effect that it will have on the animation by reducing it from 0 to 1. At 1, it's exactly the way that you animated it. If I reduce the value of that to something else, it's going to be half, it's going to do half of it. It's going to have less of an impact in your animation. And so right now I'm just leaving everything 1. I can decide where that start frame is, and if I look here, I can see that there's the number 14. Well, that's when the clip will begin. That's where this front edge of the clip is, at frame 14, and notice it says it right here. If I want the front edge of that to be at frame 1, I can change that, and I will want to change that, and you'll see that it snaps to frame 1. So there's a couple things. Where the clip begins and where it ends is here. And this is the frames when it was actually recorded. When I animated it, it was actually animated at frame 1 and at frame 90. But I can move this to begin anywhere in time. So this is not going to happen until frame 47. If I was to play my timeline, my ship sits until bam, 47, and then it starts to move. Now, one of the things that, and notice that it's updated here in my attribute editor. I'm going to go back to frame 1. One of the things we can do is scale this. So I can actually make this smaller or shorter. If I grab the back edge of this, I can scale this down. If I wanted to, I find it to be easier to just kind of go here and type in like half. And if I scaled this down, then it would happen faster. I can speed it up. If I made it longer, let's say I make it 3 times longer, by scaling it up 3 times, you'll notice that the animation is much, much slower. So we have controls on how to change some of these settings, then kind of to alter them. Let's make another one. Let's now take our ship and we will keyframe its y-axis. So this is going to be the takeoff. So here we are. We want this to be in the, I'm going to go back to my channel box. I want to be here. I want my attributes to be down at 0. I want to keyframe it at 0. And then I want the takeoff to occur maybe at about frame 30. I want it to hit its high point. Okay, so that will be my takeoff animation. Here we go, like this. I'm going to check my curve on that. Again, my animation curve. And I might want this to have a little bit more of a delay. Again, you should be thinking about the movement all the time. So I want to adjust this curve so it takes off a little bit more quickly here, perhaps. Oops, I'm going to grab that. Or I want it to be a little slower, actually. So curves, weighted curves, tangents, free tangents. So I can free these up a little bit. I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to change this one maybe to have it slope down a little bit more. Let's see what that looks like. Now I adjust things. I may not like it, but I will at least try. Okay. So I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to go back to my tracks editor. I'm going to say create animation clip, options box. I'm going to call this ship Y liftoff. All right. I'm going to put an underscore after that to separate those. And I'm going to say create clip. Now notice I have two things in my timeline now. If for some reason you can't see this, you'll want to click on this load selected characters button. You'll want to select that and it will load in the characters. Sometimes that doesn't, they don't pop in there, so you might have to load that. But what I'm going to do is now I can see my ship lifting off. But what I want to do is if I was to take this now and move this clip to a different position, then that liftoff animation is going to delay and not actually occur for a while. So I can delay. You can see now how this tracks editor, maybe I want to slow that down a little bit. Maybe I want to speed it up. So I can use those attributes for it. And I can, I'm going to speed that up a little bit. So I'm going to maybe make that half as fast. Let's see what happens. There, zip. I don't want to do that. Maybe I want to slow it down. Sometimes we just kind of got to guess at what we want. There we go. So I got this nice thing happening there. Okay. So now I have two things. Let's do a landing. Okay, so now I want to see kind of about where things are here. If I go to my animation curve here, I can see that I was at 5.11. Okay, and so if I'm up here at 5.11, I want to go back to my channel box. All right, I want to key that. I'll just go here. So I'm going to translate 5.11 and I'm going to say key selected. And then I'm going to have it land. And I'm going to go back down to 0 here. So here's my landing. Flies and then it lands. All right. Now I'm going to give it a little bit more space. So I'm going to select this keyframe and I'm going to move it on. I want this landing to take a little longer than that. All right. So now I have this, and I want to make that a new clip. So I'm going to go to Create Animation Clip, Options box, and I'm going to call this Ship Y Landing. I'm going to say Create Clip. So now I have a landing. Maybe I want to move that to where the ship kind of hovers. And let's see what happens now. I'm going to increase my space. I've gone over my timeline. I'm going to give myself 200 frames here. Now let's see what I'm getting. I got my landing, I got my takeoff, it flies, and now it's going to hover and land. Okay, now I should be saving my scene all along the way, so I'm going to go ahead and save my scene. Okay, now what would happen if I started to blend these things together? Now that might get kind of weird. So you could see things like this when it's trying to calculate things. So right now I'm going to separate these. But now I want to start adding some turbulence. So when this ship starts to fly, let's say this ship is a hovercraft, it hovers. I would need to move these all down a little bit. I'm going to just move them over. So let's say it's going to hover, take off, then move forward. And then it's going to come to a stop and land. So let's give it a little bit of turbulence while it's in the air. So let's say I'm going to be using my other control, and I want to set some keys for that. I'm just going to kind of give it some turbulence here. So I'm going to set a key on all 3 of these, key selected, and I'm going to move forward, and in 30 seconds I'm going to kind of bank it a little bit, and then I might raise it up and bank it over this way, and then maybe I'll have it kind of move forward. Maybe it's going to be down here like this, and then move back up, maybe straighten it out. Maybe it kind of starts to straighten out by the time it gets here. So really I'm just kind of putting some movements into it. So gives it a little bit of life as it starts to fly, gives it some rotation, and then just before it lands, I think I'll have it kind of straighten out and go back to its position here. So all right, I might make this and this a lot closer together. Oop. Here we go. All right, so I can adjust that. You can figure out what you want to do with it. And the idea is, if I was happy with that and I wanted to make a clip out of it, I simply go make an animation clip. I'll call this rotation in flight. I'll say create clip. Now what's cool about this is that I can do lots of things with this once I have it. If I scaled it down, maybe 0.33, I can have this during its flight pattern. Maybe it's turbulence, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's just chaos happening to the ship as it's flying along. All right, so you can kind of get the idea. And however I layer these, it will, play that animation over the others. Now, if I want to avoid any sort of double transforms, I can't tell it to do the same thing. I can't say go up and down at the same time. Obviously, that's going to create some kind of problem. So I'm kind of trying to do it in a logical format where I have forward motion and things kind of occurring at the same time, yet they are mutually, possible. So I can have my turbulence and my landings and all that kind of occurring. So I get this kind of effect. All right. Now, in the lesson that you're going to be doing, you're going to learn about these things as well. All right. And so the next thing you're going to see in the second part of the demo of the tutorial that you're using, you're going to also look at a trax editor used for motion capture data. And so in your getting started lesson, you're going to go into animation. If you click this and you go into the animation, there's a trax lesson 2. If you go into trax lesson 2, it's going to load up a character that is just a skeleton, and that skeleton actually has motion data on it that'll create that character and allow him to walk and sit down. So you have this data. Well, you're going to create a clip out of that, and you're going to learn to take that clip and you're going to create some changes to it. You'll make a walking cycle that you're able to cycle your actual character from. So what you're actually going to be doing is ending up creating a much longer walk cycle out of a small clip. So you'll be able to make your character walk and continue walking and change its direction. Notice he changes and then come to and then sit down. So taking one little clip like that, you're able to cycle through your character So what I'm actually doing is I'm creating a clip, and then you can cycle that, and I can create a clip of walking from a certain amount of steps, and then repeat that over and over and over again, and then add some blending and add some so the second part of another clip of the sitting down. So you can actually do some really interesting things where you can trim your layers and blend things. So this is kind of interesting stuff. So I want you to get at least a little bit of experience working with it and experimenting with it. All right, have fun and explore what's possible with your Trax editor and see how you can put it to good use.